Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to my 1cc run of DeathSmiles. We're playing the Steam version, Mega Black Label Normal Arrange for this one. This was my first 1cc of a sort of quote-unquote real arcade shoot-'em-up game. So while I kind of picked the easy path, there's nothing like super high difficulty in this. It still is a momentous occasion for me, and I figured I would commemorate the event with a video. So I thought it would be fun to just watch the replay of this run and comment on what my thought process was throughout and how I tackled it. All right, so let's get going. Okay, right off the bat here, I chose Follett as my fighter. I'll go into reasons why in a moment, but first I wanted to talk about the pathing on this game. So you sort of like in Super Mario Bros. 3 fashion, you can choose which level in which order that you want to play through, and you also get to choose the difficulty level of each one. You get to choose a level 1 or a low difficulty level for 2 of these stages, and then you get a choice of 2 level 2 difficulties to assign to each stage. And then the rest of them you have to use level 3. So there's 2 stages left that you have to use level 3. I used all of my level 1 and level 2 difficulty choices, so I'm not entering death mode on this. This isn't a high difficulty, high score run. This is just a 1cc, pure and simple. So what I did here was I chose the level 3 highest difficulty levels for stages A1 and A2. I chose the level 2 medium difficulty for stage B1 and B2, and I chose the level 1 lowest difficulty level for stages C1 and C2, which in my opinion were the hardest ones to get through. Okay, so let's keep moving. Okay, so hardest difficulty level for A1 Port Town. Now, I chose Follett here because she's not the strongest character. That would probably either go to Rosa or the DLC character, the witch. I don't remember her name right now. Sakura. Just because they have very strong, focused, laser-like projectiles and very strong options or satellites, a little familiar, that floats around you. I chose Follett because she has massive screen coverage, and for a noob like me, that is kind of a godsend. So what I'm doing here is I am trying to kill the enemies as soon as they enter the screen, or at least as soon as possible after they enter the screen, depending on, you know, how I have to maneuver around the bullets. In shoot-'em-up games, this one in particular, but usually most other shoot-'em-up games too, the best defense is a good offense. So if you can clear enemies right as they enter the screen so that you don't have to deal with them, so they don't become a problem once they're on the screen and everybody's populating and giving you harder routes through projectiles and different enemies, then that's usually the way you want to go. The other reason I picked Follett, you can see it here, is that her familiar, or her option, or her satellite, little green dragon that's shooting flames out all over the place, it's very powerful and very easily manipulated. So he kind of follows you in the opposite direction of where you're moving, and he points in the same direction as you. And his flame spell is really, really powerful. You can usually melt enemy life bars with it, even if Follett's own projectiles aren't hitting the enemy. And we'll see some examples of that in a little bit. Now, this is the first boss. On easy difficulty, this guy's kind of a pushover. On the hardest difficulties, he's not too bad either, but you can get these weird blade patterns here. And you can see that was the first example of sort of the bullet hell genre, where there's just a little tiny sliver of a safe spot that I was able to get through between that huge blade and then one of the bullets. I was able to get through that sometimes, depending on the patterns of those blades that he sends out. It's hard to find a safe spot through that and the bullets, and you have to use a bomb, which provides invulnerability for a short period of time. In order to get through it without getting hit. I was able to get through that time with saving all my bombs. And in fact, I do take this no-miss run all the way up to the last boss, whose name is Tyranno Satan. one of the best boss names ever in the history of video games, period. But we'll see how that went down when we get there. But yeah, more or less perfect up to this point, and this will be more or less perfect run all the way through. Now, there has been a lot of practice, but okay, so the level design in this game isn't particularly complicated. There's not a whole lot to memorize. There are some sticky trouble points here and there, but for the most part, I think this is a really good beginner game for the shoot 'em up genre because it doesn't overwhelm you too much with projectiles and pathing and needing to rehearse a specific order of events every single time. The bullet patterns aren't thick and dense enough, at least on the difficulty levels that I'm playing, to necessitate that kind of practice, training, and rehearsal. But it does allow you to sort of work on your fundamentals and practice certain things. And what I've been practicing with this game for several hours, and through trial and error and just dying over and over again, is not focusing on my character so much. It's really easy to fall into a trap with these bullet hell games where you're not looking at the enemies, you're not seeing the whole screen, you're focused pretty much tightly on your character and trying to navigate them through very tight bullet patterns. One way to get a lot better at these games really quickly is to widen your focus out a little bit and try to see the whole screen while manipulating your character in your peripheral. That way you can kind of see the path through the bullet pattern as a bigger picture than, just doing what you can to survive with your focus entirely on your character, but then you end up moving in a direction that keeps you alive for now, but puts you in a much worse position later on. Okay, so these last two levels were not too bad. Now we're stepping it up to level 2 difficulty on stage B1 and B2, and we start getting it into more bullet hell, like thicker bullet patterns with this one. So I'm trying to kill these spiders and these sort of creature of the Black Lagoon enemies off of the screen as soon as possible, just because that will limit the amount of bullets on the screen, as I said before. And a lot of this, Follett covers so much of the screen that memorizing these levels often has to do mostly with just knowing which way to shoot, either left or right. So yeah, that bullet pattern was kind of thick. It wasn't too bad. But you can see how I'm kind of using my peripheral to see the entire screen and then making tiny little movements here and there to be able to navigate my way through the whole pattern as opposed to just trying to stay alive in the moment. And you can see just how quickly Bobo, who is the dragon, that's his name, it can help melt these boss enemies. It's great. This game also has a hyper mode. If you tap on the left and right buttons at the same time, or you can assign a button to it explicitly in the Steam version, they'll go into hyper mode and your little counter in the bottom left will go down at that point. You build up that counter by grabbing items. As you can see, when you kill enemies, you start getting these numbers. If you let the item bounce around, see, that was like a little crown that bounced around before I sucked it up. As you gather those items from dead enemies, the number in the lower left-hand corner of the screen goes up, and that's your hyper gauge. Once you get up to 500, I believe, you can activate that, but you really want to wait till it's maxed out at like 999 to get the full effect of it. And you can see that I'm manipulating Bobo, the dragon. Manipulating Bobo is the name of my indie band. You can see that I'm manipulating him to kind of act as an umbrella at times, or like a safety net. Someone who gets down there and can extinguish enemies and threats either above or below me before they get to me. And that's sort of the main function, the main utility of that satellite, that familiar. for me anyway, beyond just adding damage to boss fights. Now, that car that I blew up did release a life up power-up. I didn't need it at this point because I hadn't gotten hit yet. Okay, this boss fight is very interesting. She enters several sort of phases, and each phase requires certain tactics in order to get through it. She also seems to have more health than the previous bosses, so this fight tends to be a little more prolonged. And this is sort of level 2 difficulty, medium difficulty, I would say. So on level 3, it's much more difficult. There's sort of much more you have to dodge, higher health pools and things like that. The reason I didn't go with all 3 level 3 difficulties on all stages is because since I'm just trying to do the 1cc at this point, I'm not trying to go for score. Once you hit 4 level 3 difficulty levels, once you complete 4 level 3 difficulty levels, you enter what's called death mode. And in death mode, each enemy spawns what's called suicide bullets. So when you kill an enemy, it bursts into shrapnel, and that shrapnel kind of follows you. If you get hit by those, you take a hit. You lose some life. If, however, you can either shoot or absorb those with your familiar, with your satellite, in this case Bobo the dragon, those will turn into items that you can collect for points. So if you're going for a score run, you want to go high difficulty level all the time. But I'm not there yet. I'm just doing a good old run-of-the-mill 1cc and trying to work on my shoot-'em-up fundamentals here. Those fundamentals being that I'm working on throughout the course of this. Using my peripheral vision to see the whole screen at once as opposed to being focused very tightly on my character. But also using micro dodges as much as possible. I'm not trying to make these big sweeping movements. As you can see, I'm just kind of like twitching up and down a little bit here and there. That helps a lot for thicker bullet patterns, kind of like that. If you make these big wild sweeping movements, it increases the chances that you're going to hit another bullet on the other side of the screen, or an enemy that you're not seeing because you're focusing on glowing bullets and not sort of the flat enemy art. There you go. Not making these big movements, just kind of twitching a little bit, just to create an economy of movement. Like I said, it makes it so you're not going to run into something you don't see, but also it keeps your bullets trained on your enemy a little bit better too. If you're really making this wide sweeping dodge away from an enemy, you're likely gonna take your focus fire off of a big boss enemy. So here for this level, it's a long descent into the depths of this sort of volcanic cavern. And you can see right away that I moved Bobo down to the bottom of my character. And so he's acting as a sort of reverse umbrella where the threats are coming up from down below. I put Bobo down below to sort of try to eliminate or extinguish those threats before they even get to me. Your familiar is completely invincible in this game. He can go through walls. Most of the time they can actually shoot through walls too, where your character's own shots cannot. So you can see him down there clearing the way of the volcanic debris that's shooting out of the side there before I get down there and need to navigate my way around. So this level in particular, knowing your route, knowing your pathing, and pathing is a term, like your path that you use in these games, is sort of an intermediate to advanced concept that's kind of necessary for 1cc runs and scoring runs. This level in particular is one that you really need to know where you're going, where you're shooting before you get there. And as you can see, I made it through to the boss without getting hit, which is great on this level. This boss is not so bad on a level 1 difficulty where we're at right now. As you can see, his health bar kind of gets deleted by Bobo there. And I was using Bobo as a regular umbrella at that time, sort of extinguishing that falling debris before it can even get to me. That left me to just focus on dodging the dragon's direct shots at me. Okay, so that is all of the starter levels there. I believe there's one more level before the last level. We get some story here. Sakura is the daughter of who you think is the main bad guy, but is not. He's kind of the guy that's responsible for all these monsters. He's opened up a portal that he thinks is going to take him back to the real world. This is kind of like Halloween Land if you're into the whole Nightmare Before Christmas thing. All right, we got some more Reapers here. It's a callback to the first level. And I think what this is supposed to symbolize is there's more and deadlier enemies as you get closer to the portal, the source of where all these monsters are coming from. Yep, and this is the Hades Castle. This is where things start getting very bullet hellish. We have not activated death mode, so they get even more bullet hellish. But this is still pretty tough. This level does present some challenges, especially for a beginner like me. And you can see that I'm employing all of my tactics here. I'm doing my best not to look at my character while I'm dodging things. Especially when it's... You do need to do that when bullet patterns get like really thick and really difficult and you have a very, very small window to get through these things. But that's where your pathing and rehearsal come in. You know when to sort of focus in your vision on your character and try to get through a tight bullet pattern. Whereas most of the rest of the time you're just keeping an eye on the screen at a macro level instead of a micro level. So yeah, employing all the tactics I can for this level. Offense is a good defense. Dispatching, oh, this part is really tough. I activated hyper mode right there. The problem with these enemies is that they're very, sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is to be good. Those enemies are very spongy, so they do take a lot of hits, and then their bullet patterns stay on the screen and are disruptive for a very long time. So it's almost impossible to wipe them out immediately. At least with this character, you kind of have to deal with them all being on the screen at once, and that's usually, if I take a hit, that's where it's going to be. So dispatching these enemies quickly on either side of you is very important in this part. And even then, you're probably going to leave an enemy on the screen long enough that you're going to have to deal with some kind of crazy bullet pattern. So you got to be on your game for this part. I'm trying to keep Bobo below me so he can preemptively take out these enemies that are spawning from the bottom as soon as possible. But that's not always working out. Sometimes if I have to make a quick dodge, he's going to swing up above me. And then you can see that I'm almost immediately, you know, swinging him back down to the bottom. Those centaur characters are a pain in the butt. They aren't particularly spongy, but if you don't kill them right away, the bullet patterns that they shoot out are very hard to deal with. So you'll see me prioritize those guys later on. Okay, we got another tough bullet pattern coming up here. All right, with the big eyeball enemies here, there are multiple of them. Yeah, you can see just bullets everywhere. You can see why they call it bullet hell, right? Now I'm gonna swing Bobo up to the top, sort of preemptively take care of as many enemies as possible. Those armored centaurs, they'll send out a lot of bullets at you. You got to be ready for those. Try to kill them as soon as possible. You're probably not going to be able to get all of them, so you just got to kind of deal with them. The unarmored centaurs here have the harder bullet pattern to deal with. So you're going to see me take care of these guys like right away. I'm lining up Bobo to be able to deal with these centaurs as soon as they come out, and you're going to hear them squish. There's one of them there. There's one of them there. Another one and another one. Yeah, if you leave those on the screen for too long, they're gonna send out a lot of bullets really quickly, so you gotta be careful. This is one of my favorite enemies, the sort of like big cannonball that comes out and then the splash with the dense bullet pattern coming up. You gotta be ready for those. If you're not, you're gonna get overwhelmed really quickly, but yeah, one of my favorites. Oh, here's one of my favorite scenes in the whole game. This is the waltz scene. Not particularly difficult with the bullet and enemy patterns. It being sort of like the last non-boss scene. It's not really that hard, but it does kind of have this waltzy sway to it with the camera movements and character momentum and things like that you do have to be ready for. I just thought it was like super creative with the camera movement going with the music and the dancing ball goers. These guys can be tough to deal with. You don't want to be caught in the middle with those guys, and they kind of spawn from one side to the other. You'll see me try to go all the way to one side of the screen so I don't get caught in the middle. Here we go. I'm gonna try to scoot all the way left if I can. There we go. Just a few more enemies now. All right, now we fight Jitterbug. Either the best or worst name for a boss, especially like a penultimate boss, depending on, you know, your tolerance for whimsy, I suppose I'll say. I've grown to love it. Kind of fits the theme of this game. Sort of a little bit whimsy, little bit crazy, little bit spooky. But it's ultimately just all fun. Okay, so I try my best every time I fight this guy not to use a bomb. If you can get through this boss fight, you can see there's a lot of bullets here that I'm making some very accurate little micro dodges for. If you can beat this guy without using a single bomb, you'll get a life refill. As you can see, I couldn't quite do it. He throws out that arc that it covers more of the screen as it moves. So if you're not able to get close enough to him when he shoots it and get around that thing, you're gonna have to bomb, otherwise you're gonna take a hit. Now, I was fortunate enough at the end, or good enough, I guess, at the end of this to have full life. So I had the bombs to spend and I didn't need the life refill, so I just went ahead and popped it. Now this is where things get really tough, and you want to be sort of liberal with your bomb usage on this one if you're more of like a beginner to intermediate player like I am, because each hit that you take is worth 3 bombs. If you take a hit without using all your bombs, you've wasted 3 bombs. And what you get from the bomb is right here. Full screen, huge damage, and invulnerability for the length of the bomb. So you kind of need that. So I've used 2 bombs. I still haven't been hit yet. This part gets really tough. You want to use your aim mode on this one, which does cause screen slowdown because these games weren't designed to use a GPU. They were completely CPU driven. There is a lot of slowdown, and that slowdown is baked into the difficulty of the game. They designed these harder parts of the game with the fact that you're going to get CPU slowdown as a thing. So you saw I did bomb there right at the very end before I got hit with that 1 bullet. Now I have 0 bombs left, but I still do have all 3 life blocks left. So I do have 6 bombs, well 9 bombs technically, left to fire off. I did take a hit there, so I got refilled with bombs. Oh, and then I wasted 3 bombs because I got hit without using them. Okay, 2 bombs left, may as well just use them. The enemy is out of health anyway, so I only had 1 hit left to take, but I did have the bombs left over to be able to wipe him out at the very end. So that was it. That was the whole thing. That was kind of my thought process, the tactics that I used, the strategy that I had developed for this run. Again, this wasn't a scoring run. Scoring runs will be very different in terms of which difficulty levels I assign to each level stage at the very beginning. And with that increased difficulty, it might cause me to use one of the more powerful advanced characters like Rosa or Sakura. But for now, keeping it simple, just getting through it. Yeah, that was the route that I took. That was my pathing. And those were my thoughts. That's basically what I was thinking the whole time I was playing, and the tactics and things that I employed. So I hope you learned something. If you don't have a lot of experience with these arcade shmup games, maybe you're a little more interested in them now. It's not just, you know, these twitchy reactions. There is a lot of practice, a lot of strategy, a lot of thought, and a lot of very smart and clever techniques that you use throughout these games. I think from here, I might take a break from DeathSmiles. I kind of want to go back to Dodonpachi now, and try some of the novice modes and try all the different ships and all the different shot types and things in that game, and see if I can find something that clicks for me there. But yeah, I think that's it for me for now. If you like this video, like the video, subscribe. I'm gonna have more shoot 'em up and arcade content at some point. Subscribe if that sounds cool to you. Stay tuned for more stuff, and I'll see you around.